motherfuckers are next level. They say not only do we produce 80% of the world's manufacturing, your favorite shoes, your favorite handbags, your favorite clothes come from China, but guess what else do? Electronics. And man, do they have everything for the low. But they say, hey, we make iPhones too. 80% of the world's population of iPhones come from China. Like these manufacturers is putting everybody on blast, saying if you want it for cheap, come get it for us. Skip the middleman. Some say free shipping. Now we all know trying to order something right now would probably be pointless. Because of these high-ass tariffs, it's gonna be probably just sitting at their port. However, when good old Donnie Boy decide to set the record straight, you can get all this shit for the low. Some even saying free shipping. This is why they want to cut out the middleman. The government been getting over on Americans for Lord knows how long. And China is setting the record straight. Are you one of the ones that like to keep up with the Jeffersons? Or are you one of the ones that value your dollar? Will you be going straight to the source? Or will you keep using the middleman?
You pay $1,200 for an iPhone 15 Pro Max. You pay $1,400 for the iPhone 16 Pro Max with extra storage. You drop $1,600 for the latest Ultra with all the bells and whistles. Cheap is not a word that applies. But what exactly are you paying for? I've spent the last 6 months investigating the smartphone industry, and what I found will make you question everything about your next phone purchase. After interviewing 24 former employees, visiting manufacturing facilities undercover, and analyzing hundreds of pages of leaked internal documents, I can finally reveal what Apple and other premium smartphone makers don't want you to know. There is a new scandal erupting in the luxury smartphone division that makes Batterygate look like a minor hiccup. Listen, if you want to keep going to the Apple store and spending your money, go and do that. However, industry insiders are coming out, and I have their videos, documents, and testimonies. People have even been fired, sued, and blacklisted from the industry for lifting the hood away from some really ugly truths about what you're actually paying for. 95% of the world's smartphones are made here, including the one you're holding right now. Many big brand phones are produced or sourced parts from here. This place is Shenzhen City, the world's smartphone capital. And in Shenzhen, you must not miss Foxconn. What if that $1,200 iPhone in your pocket wasn't what you think it is? What if that California-designed innovation you've been flexing is actually born under fluorescent lights in a Chinese factory next to 1,000 other identical pieces? Because right now, the luxury smartphone industry is spiraling. And the reason? China just dropped the receipts. A wave of viral videos and insider leaks just tore the curtain off the smartphone world. We're not talking knockoffs, we're talking real parts, real materials, real manufacturers, just without the Cupertino marketing fairy tale. And suddenly, people are asking the question no brand wants to hear. If it's really designed in California, why does it come straight out of Shenzhen? So buckle up, because this story isn't about cheap fakes. This is about real factories, real brand markups, and a $1 trillion illusion that's finally cracking under pressure. What you're about to hear might make you think twice before dropping 4 figures on a smartphone ever again.
I want to quiz the audience. Does anybody know how much it costs to make this beautiful product in China? Anybody want to take a guess? It's the iPhone 14, which cost about 18 to 20 million. Yeah. $100? Okay, I'll take one more guess. So I got a 99 guess, I got a 100 guess, I got a 300 guess. You ready for the answer? $10. I swear to God, I've sharing with these guys, they couldn't believe me. I've visited the factories 3 times. I've met up with the chairman of Foxconn who makes these things.
Let's start where the truth lives, and spoiler, it's not Cupertino. iPhones are actually made in China, and the reason that some premium Android phones often have similar build quality is that they're made in the same industrial zones. You probably thought iPhones came from sleek American tech campuses, right? Little workshops with engineers in white lab coats assembling your iPhone by hand while listening to U2. Cute idea, total fantasy. Because here's the truth, over 95% of the world's smartphones are actually made in China, and it's not some back alley operation. We're talking Shenzhen, the Silicon Valley of electronics manufacturing, the same city that supplies components for laptops, gaming consoles, and Precision Instruments also produces high-end displays, camera modules, and aluminum frames with laser accuracy. It's so serious that multiple factories in Shenzhen openly manufacture components for Samsung, Google, and yes, even Apple. Real OLED displays, sapphire camera lenses, aluminum frames with precision machining, all made at scale and delivered worldwide. And the kicker, these factories aren't hiding. They supply the entire smartphone ecosystem from budget brands to luxury flagships. So if you're wondering why some $500 phones look so premium these days, it's because in many cases, they come from the exact same industrial zones. That little "designed in California" label on the box, it's not what you think it is. Apple legally only designs the phone in California. The manufacturing, assembly, and component sourcing, that's all overseas, primarily China.
We're at Apple Store in China, and this iPhone 15 Pro right here is really different from what's going on in the Western market. I know that the iPhone 14 and above in America, they won't have any SIM card holder anymore because everyone in America apparently use an eSIM. While in China, they're still having the SIM card holder, and you can put a dual SIM card inside your phone. Outside that, because Apple is really trying to compete with Huawei P60 here in China, they lower down the price of iPhone 15. Everybody knows that Huawei has good quality, good price phone. Actually, right now, the cheapest iPhone 15 you can ever find is in China. This is not very common. Before iPhone 15, every single models of Apple is just so expensive. Anyway, for my next iPhone, if I'm buying an iPhone 15, I'm gonna buy it here in China. I'm no longer going to America and buy one. I'm such a big Apple fan. I love a good MacBook, especially the MacBook Pro. Honestly, I think Windows system is better than the iOS system, but I just love the finish and the touch of a good MacBook Pro, especially the newest version. Well, I spend a lot of money on buying all the MacBook, all the Apple products. I'm gonna save some money, and then maybe for the next 1 to 2 years, I'm gonna buy a new MacBook Pro.
What counts as value? Things like branding, marketing, software development, and R&D. So let's say the whole iPhone is built in Shenzhen. Screen, case, cameras, even assembled. Then Apple adds their software, their brand, and their retail experience. Boom! You're paying $1,200 for something that costs around $400 to make. It's one of the sneakiest profit margins in tech history, and almost no one talks about it. Because if consumers found out their so-called premium iPhones were mostly born in the same factories as mid-range Android phones, the illusion collapses, and that illusion is what people are really paying for. The brands won't correct the misunderstanding because confusion is profitable. They'll keep letting you believe your iPhone was built by genius engineers in Silicon Valley while paying Shenzhen factories to mass produce the real thing. Now that's a flex, just not for you. This scandal didn't break through traditional media channels, no glossy exposés from tech publications, no investigative pieces from major news outlets. It started with anonymous Reddit threads from throwaway accounts claiming to be factory workers. Then it spilled onto TikTok, where viral teardown videos showed identical components between $1,200 flagships and $600 mid-range phones. Then the real bombshells dropped. I tracked down several former employees from major tech companies who agreed to speak on condition of anonymity. One senior engineer who worked on display calibration for a major brand for 7 years was fired after documenting too many supply chain irregularities.
Shit's heating up fast.
$1 shoe 90 cents 90 cents
iPhone 14 Pro Max
来考虑到的内置网络自订盒，支持 WiFi。
20 supplies of Hugo Boss.
Brands are finally responding. The viral TikToks coming out are getting millions of views and loads of customers. Videos are showing what looks like real Nike shoes, Timberlands, Apple products, all being sold straight from the source for a fraction of the price. So the real question is, are these real? Are we being ripped off, or are some brands just panicking now that the veil's been lifted? A few brands have come out swinging. Lululemon was quick to deny a viral TikTok showing cheap leggings supposedly made in their factory. They said that only 3% of their stuff is made in China, and the factory in the video was not one of theirs. Birkenstock went even harder. They said that 100% of their shoes are made in Europe, mostly Germany, and that TikTok videos showing cheap Birkenstock clogs from China are fake. They're not a supplier. They don't even associate themselves with China at all. They got the videos taken down. And then there's Louis Vuitton, who proudly states they don't make anything in China.
Milled in one place, dyed in another country, spun and knitted in a third country, then in pieces, and then sent to Italy or sent to France, and where it's stitched together, and therefore wherever the last stop was and the last bit was, they can put the, oh, it was made in France.
But interestingly, most brands have stayed silent. Nike, Timberland, Apple, Milwaukee Power Tools, so many others, nothing, crickets. No official statements, no press releases, just a whole lot of silence. And that's interesting because Nike shoes are made in China, so are Timberlands. And your precious iPhone fully assembled in a Chinese mega factory. Milwaukee Power Tools is a Chinese-owned company, manufactured in China. These brands don't deny their products are made in China. They just don't seem to want you to connect the dots between the factory they're made in your wallet. The truth is, most of the world's products come from China, or countries that work hand in hand with China, like Vietnam, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Malaysia. You might think you're buying something that's not made in China, but China probably shipped the materials there in the first place, and that includes Louis Vuitton and all these other companies. The global supply chain is more connected than you think, and China sits at the center of it. Are we finally seeing behind the curtains, or is China trying to trick us?
I was responsible for final quality control on displays, he told me, showing documentation proving his former position. I started noticing that displays labeled as premium exclusive were virtually identical to those being shipped to competitor phones costing half as much. Same manufacturing origin, same specs, same supplier, just different calibration software and a premium label. When I brought this up to management, I was first ignored, then sidelined, and finally let go during a restructuring. He shared internal specification documents that confirmed his story. Display panels with identical technical specifications were being sorted into premium and standard categories based on arbitrary metrics and destined for devices at wildly different price points. Another whistleblower, a former supply chain auditor, provided photographs of internal components, circuit boards, and camera modules that matched parts found across multiple brands at very different price points. The camera module in a $1,200 phone might have slightly different software tuning, but the actual hardware, the sensor, the lens elements, the stabilization mechanism, often identical to what's in phones costing hundreds less, she explained. The deeper I dug, the worse it got. A factory foreman from Foxconn, speaking through an interpreter and visibly nervous, described how assembly lines would switch between producing different brands, sometimes within the same day, using largely interchangeable components. Monday iPhone, Tuesday Xiaomi, Wednesday Google, same workers, same machines, similar parts, he said, only the software and final branding change. This wasn't just a fluke or isolated incidents. It was the entire system built on component sharing, parallel manufacturing, and price segmentation that had little to do with actual hardware differences.
China has Apple stores that aren't even Apple.
Does it?
Yes. China has full Apple stores where they're selling counterfeit laptops, phones, everything. None of it is really, I don't even know if they do phones anymore. But it was all, they had Apple stores that Apple found out about that weren't even, nothing was Apple.
Luxury tech brands have perfected this supply chain secrecy for decades, hiding behind carefully worded marketing about custom-designed components that are actually standard parts with minimal modifications. But now, thanks to social media and brave whistleblowers, their silence is being drowned out by thousands of voices exposing receipts and hard evidence. If this is such a big scandal, why isn't the mainstream tech media screaming about it? Why aren't the MKBHDs and iJustines of the world talking about this? Simple. Follow the money and the access. Phone brands pour millions into ad placements, tech review sponsorships, and influencer partnerships. Outlets like CNN and The Verge get early access to devices and exclusive interviews. They're not going to bite the hand that feeds them. Influencers, even worse. They're gifted phones, flown to private launch events, and paid for hush-hush loyalty. One bad review and poof, no more brand deals, no more perks. So guess what happens? They play nice, smile wide, and keep it cute. That's why the truth isn't coming from them. It's coming from TikTok creators, factory workers, and YouTubers who have nothing to lose and just enough internet access to tell the world what's really going on. Apple never discounts, like ever. That's why it was such a shock when people noticed certain models suddenly getting more aggressive trade-in values and carrier promos. With zero announcement, iPhone 15 Pro, iPhone 14 Pro quietly getting easier to afford. The brand didn't say a word, but tech insiders caught it immediately. Forums lit up with screenshots from carriers and retailers showing unexpected incentives, the timing right after those viral videos exposing Shenzhen factories. Coincidence? Please.
China has better iPhones than the rest of the world. I hate to admit it, but they actually do. Let me explain. In places like mainland China, Hong Kong, Macau, iPhones have dual SIM cards. That means that they can use 2 physical SIM cards on the same phone. Why? Well, Apple claims it's due to China's resistance to eSIMs. As a result of this, sellers are marking up the prices of these devices for the rest of the world. Of course, you could achieve dual SIM with eSIM and a physical SIM card, but it's far more convenient just to have 2 physical SIMs for most people. For whatever reason though, China does not have Apple's SOS satellite feature. I still find it kind of crazy that
Luxury tech brands don't do anything accidentally, especially not Apple, whose entire strategy relies on premium positioning. So to suddenly offer better deals in select markets, that's panic mode. They didn't want headlines. They didn't want press. They just wanted the buzz to die down before anyone asked more questions. But by then, it was too late. The leaks were everywhere and the damage was done. Here's where it gets wild. These factories are no longer hiding. They're promoting parallel builds. Not knockoffs, not dupes, same parts, similar specs, just no Apple logo. You'll see terms like factory direct, OM quality, or premium alternative. It's basically, we build it, but legally we can't say it's for Apple. I managed to get access to one of these factories through a connection who wishes to remain anonymous. What I saw blew my mind. Assembly lines producing devices that looked eerily similar to iPhones. Same unibody aluminum designs, same glass sandwich construction, same precise machining, but destined for different brands. Workers moving seamlessly between production lines using identical tools and quality control processes regardless of which logo would eventually be stamped on the device. The factory manager, speaking on condition of anonymity, showed me component bins with parts that were virtually indistinguishable from each other. This display panel goes in a premium device costing $1,200, he explained. This one, which comes from the same supplier with almost identical specs, goes in a device costing $600. Can you tell the difference? Because most consumers can't. Most shocking was the testing area, where finished devices underwent identical quality control procedures before being sorted into different packaging lines based solely on branding. Same factories, same workers, same components, wildly different retail prices. Some manufacturers are even building premium smartphones based on your specs. Display size, camera configuration, battery capacity, you name it. And where is all this going down? Telegram, WeChat, AliExpress, private chat groups, direct factory reps. You're not walking into a sketchy street stall, you're bypassing the Apple Store and buying from the actual source. These aren't $200 counterfeits, these are $500 to $700 phones made with premium specs, often using similar components to what you'd find in flagships. One factory I visited had what they called their overflow room, where excess components from official production runs were stored. When I asked what happened to these parts, the floor manager smiled knowingly. They find their way into other devices. Nothing goes to waste. Another whistleblower, a former supply chain manager for a major smartphone brand, shared documented evidence that certain mid-range phones from competing brands used identical camera sensors, memory chips, and display panels as their $1,000 plus flagship, just with different software optimization. The hardware difference between a $600 phone and a $1,200 phone is often less than $100 in actual components, he revealed. The rest is brand premium. So the next time someone flashes an iPhone, ask yourself, is it worth 3 times more than phones with similar builds, or are you just paying for the logo? Let's do the math, and I mean really do the math. I've obtained detailed component cost breakdowns from manufacturing insiders, and the numbers are staggering. An iPhone that retails for $1,200 actually costs around $400 to make when you account for all components, assembly, and shipping. Yep, less than 35% of the retail price. The A-series chip, about $55. The premium display, around $85. The much-hyped camera system, approximately $75. Add in memory, battery, aluminum frame, and other components, and you're still well under $400 for parts and assembly. Why the massive markup? You're paying for stores, $8,100 per device, marketing, another $100, $2,150, software development, $100, R&D allocation, $8,100, and pure profit margin, $350 plus. That's why Apple can afford to be the world's most valuable company, because the system generates profit margins that would make other industries blush. I spoke with a former Apple financial analyst who confirmed these numbers. During my time there, our internal target was to maintain at least 38% gross margin on hardware, but the actual figures for flagship iPhones often exceeded 60 to 65%. It's the industry's best-kept open secret. Compare that to brands like Nothing or OnePlus who operate on slimmer 15 to 25% margins. Apple, they're hitting 60 to 70% gross margins on flagship hardware. Meanwhile, brands like Dell and HP, their profit margins hover around 20 to 30% in a good quarter. Even Samsung, Apple's closest competitor, typically manages 30 to 40% on their premium models. One manufacturing consultant who's worked with multiple smartphone brands put it bluntly, when you buy a $1,200 iPhone, around $750 of what you pay has nothing to do with the actual device in your hand. It's pure brand tax. Even more revealing are the internal documents I've reviewed showing how costs have remained relatively stable over generations while prices have steadily climbed. The iPhone X cost roughly $370 to manufacture and retailed for $999. 4 generations later, manufacturing costs had increased by only about 8%, while retail prices jumped nearly 20%. That's not inflation, that's expanding profit margins. Luxury smartphone makers have mastered the illusion game better than any other industry. They're not villains plotting in California campuses, but they're not the innovators they claim to be either. They're marketing geniuses who've convinced millions to pay premium prices for technology that costs a fraction to produce. What you're really buying isn't just chips and glass. You're buying the illusion, the feeling of exclusivity, the ecosystem lock-in, the status symbol. And once you realize that, it's either empowering or enraging. Let's be honest about what's really happening when you pull out that iPhone at dinner. It's not about the technology, it's about the statement. It's about presence. It's the way a phone gleams when you set it face down on the table. The subtle flex when someone spots that Apple logo on your device. The quiet social signaling that says, I can afford the best. But here's where it gets psychological. That feeling of premium superiority vanishes the second you start doubting what's in your hand, and nothing kills confidence faster than realizing you paid triple for essentially the same technology that's in phones costing far less. I showed identical photos taken with a $1,200 iPhone and a $600 Android device to 100 random people in a blind test. Care to guess how many could correctly identify which was which? Just 52, barely better than random chance. When I revealed which was which, several people refused to believe it, insisting the iPhone photo must be the better one despite not being able to see any difference. That's the power of brand perception. It literally alters how you see reality. The premium experience might survive an Instagram story or a TikTok unboxing under soft lighting, but when you get up close with the specs, things get uncomfortable. Processing power that's matched by phones half the price. The iPhone's A16 chip benchmarks impressively, but in real-world usage, can you tell the difference between it and a high-end Snapdragon when scrolling Instagram or sending emails? Of course not. Camera systems that barely outperform last year's mid-range options. Sure, the iPhone takes great photos, but so does the Pixel 7a at less than half the price. Battery life that's actually worse than budget alternatives. Many mid-range phones will outlast flagships by hours because they're not pushing unnecessary processing power. They're not built to revolutionize, they're built to incrementally improve just enough to justify the annual upgrade cycle. A former product manager for a major smartphone brand told me, "We deliberately hold back features that are ready for production. We spread them across 3 generations to maintain the upgrade cycle. If we released everything we could in 1 generation, there'd be no reason to upgrade next year." Let me give you a specific example. The technology for faster charging has existed for years, but premium brands deliberately throttle charging speeds to save features for future releases. While Chinese manufacturers offer 80W, 100W, even 120W fast charging, Apple still ships with comparatively glacial charging speeds. It's not a technical limitation, it's planned feature rationing, and once someone points out what you could have bought instead, you're not just holding a phone, you're holding doubt. Premium tech isn't just about quality, it's about certainty. Knowing what's in your pocket, knowing why you chose it, knowing that even if nobody else says a word, you can stand by your decision. Let's not even get started on repairability, where the premium brands are actually worse than budget options. Screens that cost $300 to replace when the component itself costs under $100. batteries that can't be swapped without specialized tools costing hundreds of dollars, parts that are serialized to prevent third-party repairs, a practice so anti-consumer that governments are passing right-to-repair laws to fight it, and the software locked down, restrictive, nudging you further into the ecosystem with each update, features artificially restricted to keep you upgrading. Remember when Apple limited basic customization options for years while Android had offered them from the beginning? That wasn't a technical limitation, it was strategic feature deprivation. Premium phones are all brand and planned obsolescence, less longevity than you might expect from something costing so much. One repair technician I interviewed who's worked on thousands of devices put it bluntly, the $400 phones I repair often have simpler, more durable designs than the $1,000 plus flagships. Premium phones are often more fragile despite costing more. So here's the takeaway. You absolutely don't need to spend $1,200 to get a great phone in 2025. The $500-$700 price range now offers 95% of the premium experience at half the cost. But if you do buy premium, own it. Whether it's a $400 Android or a $1,400 iPhone, walk like you meant it. The flex isn't in the logo, it's in the certainty. Use it for yourself, not for strangers. Because confidence, not the brand, is the real luxury. But wait, there's more. The most shocking part of this investigation? The lawsuits. Big Tech has been aggressively pursuing legal action against anyone who dares expose their supply chain secrets. Former employees hit with cease and desist letters, tech reporters getting unexpected copyright strikes, content creators having their videos mysteriously removed, all for showing what's actually inside your phone. 3 ex-Apple engineers recently came forward claiming they were forced to sign NDAs so strict they couldn't even acknowledge where the components were manufactured. One described walking through Foxconn's iPhone assembly floor, a place where 350,000 workers churn out 500,000 iPhones daily, and seeing the exact same production methods being used for devices with different logos just on different floors of the same building. The difference between a $1,200 phone and a $600 phone isn't the hardware, he said, it's the software ecosystem and about $500 in marketing costs. When he tried to publish this information, Apple's legal team came knocking within 48 hours. His LinkedIn connections with current Apple employees disappeared overnight. His social media accounts got flagged. That's how serious they are about keeping this quiet. But the factories themselves, they're becoming bolder by the day. Sites like AliExpress and Taobao now openly advertise original quality parts and devices. Teardown videos showing identical components between premium and mid-range devices rack up millions of views before mysteriously disappearing. And the biggest tell of all, premium smartphone makers are now suing, not for the existence of counterfeits which have always been around, but specifically to prevent factory tours and component sourcing information from becoming public. One Chinese manufacturer who supplies aluminum frames for multiple premium brands recently told a Business Insider, "We use the same grade of aluminum, the same CNC machines, and the same finishing processes for phones that cost $400 and phones that cost $1,200. The only difference? One has a fruit logo. And it's not just the hardware. That magical user experience you're paying for? It's increasingly locked behind subscription walls. Cloud storage that costs pennies to provide but gets sold to you for $10 a month. Basic features that used to be included now requiring subscription plans. Even the right to repair your own device, something that should be fundamental, restricted to force you back into their ecosystem. But the most revealing shift happened in 2023. For the first time ever, major premium brands started emphasizing software over hardware in their marketing. Less talk about processor speeds, more about AI features and ecosystem benefits. Why? Because hardware comparisons were becoming embarrassing. When a $600 phone has the same display technology, similar camera performance, and comparable battery life to your $1,200 flagship, what exactly are you paying for? The answer increasingly is software exclusivity and perceived status. Features artificially restricted to premium devices despite requiring no special hardware. Portrait modes, cinematic video, enhanced photo processing, all of which could run on less expensive devices but are locked to justify the premium price tag. It's like selling two identical cars, explained one anonymous developer. Except one has software that artificially limits the engine's performance unless you pay extra. Same hardware, different price points, entirely controlled by code. The psychological game runs deep too. Notice how premium smartphones come in pro versions now? That's intentional manipulation. Most buyers aren't professionals. They're regular consumers who want to feel special. The pro label creates artificial hierarchy. It tells the world, I'm not just a user, I'm a professional user, even when the actual pro features get used by less than 5% of buyers. And the release cycles, carefully orchestrated theater, artificial scarcity, sold out notifications, waiting lists, all designed to create urgency and FOMO when in reality, production capacity is precisely calculated months in advance. The factories could produce more, but that would deflate the perception of exclusivity. Perhaps most telling is what happened in markets where premium brands lost their stronghold. In China, where homegrown brands like Xiaomi and Huawei offer nearly identical specs at half the price, Apple's market share has struggled. So what did they do? Double down on luxury branding rather than compete on value, because competing on actual hardware value is a battle they can't win. Even more revealing? The strategic investments premium brands make in controlling the narrative. Reviewer guides that subtly direct tech journalists toward favorable comparisons, exclusive early access to reporters who've written positively in the past, sending pre-production units to influencers who reliably gush about incremental improvements as revolutionary. One tech reviewer who asked to remain anonymous confessed, "We're explicitly told which competing devices we can compare to in our reviews if we want to maintain our relationship with certain brands. Spoiler, it's never the devices that offer better value." So now you know. The premium label's a marketing illusion, the exclusivity manufactured, the price is arbitrary, but here's the wild part. It's not even about being scammed, it's about what you believe, because if you know the game and you still want in, that's not delusion, that's power. You're not fooled, you're choosing the fantasy. Luxury tech was never just about specifications, it's about identity, it's about pulling out your phone and making people look twice. It's the silent nod from someone across the room who recognizes what's in your hand. It's prestige, flex, ego, and emotion all rolled into one glass sandwich, but now the curtain's been pulled back. And you see the wires. So the question is, do you still want to play? Will you buy a phone for what it is or for what it represents? Will you drop 4 figures for chips and glass or because of what it says about you? Because make no mistake, this game doesn't sell smartphones, it sells status, and in the right hands, that status still holds power. But now you're not walking in blind. You've seen where the parts are made. You know what OEM really means. You've watched Apple quietly boost trade-in values. You've seen the whispers turn to headlines, the factories go public, and the tech enthusiasts start asking real questions. You've got the receipts, and knowledge is leverage. So if you want that factory direct phone, go for it. If you want to flex a real iPhone you bought legit, do it. But now you're not just a customer, you're a conscious buyer. You know the markup, the myths, and the machinery behind the sparkle. And that awareness, that's where the real value lies. So let's hear it. Are premium smartphones still worth it now that you know the truth? Is Apple really trying to be more accessible, or are they shook that the veil slipped? Drop a comment, tell me your take, and let's get into it. And if you're feeling bold, hit that like button and subscribe, because this ain't the last industry getting exposed.